Yes.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Vogel, second by Supervisor Grabow. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, minutes approval is carried. Okay, so taking the streetscape issue, since we have very expensive attorneys sitting here, let's move that to the top.
We're government attorneys, we're not that expensive.
Point noted.
On the salary, so you can keep her as long as you want.
No, I'm really just here to answer any questions
Okay.
that might arise. And, I know that there's some legal issues that we may talk about a little bit.
Yeah, there were. Jen, do you want to just give us a little bit of the background, especially for our two new members of the committee?
Yep, this is something that's been kind of lingering out there for a number of years. City of Mequon has been looking at doing kind of a beautification. Originally, they had talked about Highway W or Port Washington Road, trying to do something to clean it up. They initially had kind of an adopt a highway program where the concept was that you as a resident or as a business could sign up for a section of median, go out there and fix it. I think Rhonda and I had concerns about members of the general public being out in the middle of a freeway or middle of a highway. So the city of Mequon kind of took it back, revamped it, and created more of just a design. So they've been working on the streetscape design for a few years. And when they brought it forward last time, we had a couple discussions about things we liked, things we didn't like. And then the concept was looking at an MOU to say, okay, we're responsible for our county highway, but if you guys want to put this grass and bushes and things in there for like that, you need to take care of that. Now, at that time, Court Counsel Gordon said that in her interpretation of state code, there wasn't an ability for us to do that. There are certainly abilities, for the DOT to do that with local municipalities, but there's not something explicit regarding the county being able to do that. So, I mean, I think before we get into that, I don't know if we want to touch on, so really it's three things. It's the plans themselves. Do we have concerns, issues, questions on the plans themselves? Mostly just plantings. I think they do call for 2 signs that will be future designed in there. Other than that, it mostly is, a few new areas. I did take a look. There are a few new areas of curb and gutter where currently you have kind of some concrete that's just down, and they would raise that up to create more of a concrete median with curb and gutter. Otherwise, mostly it's grass, bushes and such.
Well, and then crosswalks.
And then the crosswalks where they are proposing to kind of heat up the side and then put in a colored asphalt for the crosswalks. And then some of the concrete, I think there's some concrete as well in some of the medians where I think it's probably too narrow for grass to survive. But with that, Rhonda, I don't know if you want to touch on your biggest concerns with the MOU or expand on. Oh,
let's talk about since we're talking about the plans and so
Okay.
forth.
focus on
Anybody
design.
have any comments on the plans? Because I think you're right, John, very aptly. We've got kind of 3 issues here. We've got the plans themselves,
Yep.
what they want to do specifically. Then we have the MOU,
Mhm.
with which would, and I've got a major concern with an item in the MOU. And then whether finally, can this legally be accomplished at all? And that's the third issue. So
Yep.
regarding the plans themselves, anybody have any comments on that? Tom?
Oh,
Yeah,
should,
you-
should I make them all, maintained and street? Allow mow grass, median strip itself?
Well, again, I think the city of Mequon's purpose is, and that's why I was willing to go into this MOU. Because from my standpoint, currently there's grass in a number of them and we have to go down and mow them. But the city of Mequon wants to beautify, wants to put these other things in there. So they would then be responsible for doing any
Whatever grass they
mowing
want.
and doing whatever they would want in those areas.
I don't have any comments. It's their world. They can do what they want with it. Their city.
So related to that and the MOU, so since there are, and John and I talked about this yesterday, areas of new curb and gutter, tinted concrete, and then heating up the asphalt and stamping a brick pattern into it and coloring it. So there are alterations to the concrete asphalt highway, if you will. And my concern is the MOU currently doesn't stipulate that upon termination, they would be responsible for returning all of that to its original state if we requested and required. Right now, the MOU only requires them to take out the plantings and replace with grass. So if we were gonna go forward with this, I would very much want to see the MOU, give us the ability to direct this all the way back to the way it was, including replacing asphalt, replacing curb and gutter, taking care of every alteration that they've made. So, and any other issues regarding the MOU?
Well.
And or do you
it's 5
guys
years old.
agree or disagree with that?
It's 5-year-old MOU, so I'm sure it'd be rewritten. I mean, it's all dated 2021.
Well, I didn't. see
Yeah, I mean,
that.
certainly we would anticipate that there would be an updated version of it. We kind of wanted to just get the initial blessing to move forward and then run and I. And certainly in terms of restoration, I don't see that as being a problem for the city, I think.
That seems, it would make sense, I think. Anything else regarding the?
Why would you want that? Why do you want it to go back to the way it was?
Well, I guess, Justin, my concern is that, if, bless you, yeah. If the idea is that we're gonna allow, the city to do this, that, if for some reason we decided to terminate that, they weren't keeping it up, things weren't happening, whatever. That we would want the ability to direct them if we wanted to take it back to the way it was. I do have a concern too about, altering the asphalt and the longevity of that, I would think logic would tell me. Based on construction experience, and when you do something like that, you're going to shorten the life of the asphalt in the crosswalk. So, if that becomes, they're not maintaining it, and it becomes an issue, and frankly, there's no pedestrian traffic down there anyway and whatnot. We need the ability, as owners of the highway still, to direct the city to do what we want them to do. We're the ultimate, we still own the thing. Unless they want to take it over, I think that's we've been willing to discuss that. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, if there are any design questions, is it Hess, I believe?
Haas.
Haas, Luke Haas, the designer
Oh,
that
great.
did the streetscape design.
And
Another question, was there any study done on the amount of foot traffic that crosses where the new
Yeah.
Chase Bank is going to go and where you're putting in the crosswalks? I mean, do we actually?
Again, this is something that's all driven by the city of Mequon. They've had it, I don't know, Luke, if you want to talk briefly over the process you've gone through for the design with
Sure.
the city of Mequon.
Yeah, so they're looking to just spruce it up. It's one of their main retail commercial corridors.
Mhm.
And those medians are just all grass right now. And then the big driver too is some of the lighting to improve that. And they have TIF dollars that they're spending on the improvement. So I think it's an aesthetic improvement, first and foremost, to get people up, down into that area more than anything else. So along with the crosswalks, there hasn't been any studies on safety issues, other than at the culvers on that corner where they're turning in. There's been a few accidents there, but nothing as far as pedestrian traffic. Walking to and from or crossing the streets, it's more of an aesthetic to create some more character in that area.
Okay. Oh,
Anybody else? Anything else regarding the design or the MOU?
I like your idea of being able to go back.
Yeah, because
To control it.
if somebody different becomes the head of that department, they might not do it.
Mhm.
They don't.
And I think that
That's what happened to
pretty reasonable.
Grassman. So, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. All right, so we'll turn to the legal issue. So Rhonda, could you address your concerns with regard to this whole idea?
Yeah, well, there were twofold originally. The Adopt the Medium program, we were concerned, as John indicated, about various groups coming out of the medium in a 35-mile-per-hour speed zone and doing work and possibly voice coverings. We don't know.
These are volunteer, people from the community trying to operate with ongoing traffic. We just did not feel that was a reasonable safety
So that's been addressed, I think, in this plan,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
still the problem is liability for any damages to your property that might result out there on the as a result of, landscaping being done by somebody other than ourselves. I'm not convinced that we can contract away our liability for that. There is this provision in the Wisconsin statutes where municipalities can enter into intergovernmental cooperative agreements at 66.0301. Not a lot of case law talking about that provision, other than boundary agreements, which is something else that's addressed in the same statute. So it's hard to sort of see how this plays out in the appellate courts and reviewing courts, how they interpret the statute. But it is a broad one, and it's tended to be interpreted broadly and inclusively with agreements. However, when it comes to highway projects, what I see scattered throughout the various highway chapters of statutes are various authorizations that allow municipalities to enter into agreements with the state or the county for various reasons and specific purposes. And I haven't been able to connect the dots. I haven't found one that specifically sort of addresses the situation where the city would be coming onto the county highway and doing work on the county highway by contract. So my concern would be this: if we can't connect the dots definitively on that, and there's all these provisions, authorizations throughout highway statutes authorizing various projects, but not this one, that a reviewing court could look at that and say, well, the legislature didn't provide for that arrangement. And because they were silent on that arrangement, but not all these other types of arrangements, we find that they didn't intend this to occur. The agreement is essentially outside the power to contract for the shifting of responsibility and liability to the city, and therefore your indemnification provision fails. That's my concern. I don't think if we were to enter into this, we could do so being certain we are on solid ground, that we have the authority to do this, and therefore we can't be certain that we're shifting the liability to the city of Mequon for something that would happen as a result of this project. We could get sued. And if anything did happen out there as a result of the median work, the project, whatever, how the project was designed, and there's negligence, it's an accident, you name it, whatever somebody might think they might want to sue over, they're not just going to sue Mequon, they're going to sue us as well. And they're going to go after every theory for relief. They'll have some powerful law firm. They will look at issues like, is this agreement valid? They'll try to get at the deep pockets or whatever pocket they can. So that's my concern. I have not been able to. I think Mequon attorney thinks he's connected the dots, but I'm not necessarily in agreement with his interpretation, with all due respect. So we did start digging into other counties to see, and I did get forwarded an agreement from Waukesha this morning, but that doesn't really confront the issue either. This talks about landscaping, but it's along the roadway, like sidewalks and things like that, lighting along the roadway. This we're talking about in the roadway, part of the highway project itself, the medians. So I can't tell you it's not allowed, and I can't tell you it's allowed either. So we're sort of a little bit in limbo here, but I definitely have reservations about it.
So in summary, that it's not that the law would not allow us or preclude us from entering into this agreement. It's that potentially the law would not provide for the insulation of liability, the indemnification from the city of Mequon to ourselves.
It's actually more the law doesn't expressly prohibit it,
Mhm.
like in so many words, like in the statute, like you cannot do this. Neither does the law provide the authorization, the path, you can do this, where the law provides that for many other types of highway
So it's
sharing
even more than
agreements.
indemnification. You don't see the law necessarily expressly providing for entering into an agreement with a municipality to do work on our highway.
Correct. There, for example, there's an agreement where if we're working on a highway project going through a city, the city can request that the road be expanded to a certain maximum width. And then the county and the city cooperate and all that. The city pays the additional expenses of expanding the road to that width. That's just one example of the types of authorizations in there between city and county that you can do. That's expressly provided. And that's my concern, is that this particular thing is not expressly provided. There could be, somebody could go request the legislature to examine the issue. You could make certain requests. Some of the agreements that were like, I was afforded an agreement between DOT and a county or municipality. And in that agreement was the express statutory authority for the DOT to enter into that municipality for that type of work, or that type of agreement. And when you think about it too, it's coming top down from state to smaller jurisdiction. And we can provide county aid to municipal roads, and then take some responsibility and charge for the project. We can do that. There's provisions to contract that way. Again, it's sort of top down. Where is the sort of the bottom up? Here, we'll contract with you to do this, we'll do the work for you. We'll take on the county's work. It's kind of smaller jurisdiction to larger jurisdiction. And maybe there's some legislative intent there in terms of liability that, if it's, the roadway's benefiting all residents of the state, right? There's people from all over the state driving through Mequon at times. So one could maybe make a stronger case that the county, yeah, we can get involved in this and be responsible from the top down. But when you're going down to the bottom up, here, we're gonna assume liability for whatever happens on your medians county by entering into this agreement and doing this project for you. Now they're sort of funneling the liability to smaller group of people for maintenance of. So you could look at it from that aspect too. There might be some legislative policy in that regard. I don't know. It's far too complicated when you read the statutes. Highway statutes are complicated. They're confusing. I think there was an effort to clarify them years ago, but they still remain antiquated and very confusing and inconclusive.
So, Rhonda, there are agreements out there where the state and a municipality entrance into something like this
Yes,
is the,
maybe not median landscape exactly, but this type of project.
okay, and then under that scenario, is there indemnification flowing then from the bottom up to the state from the municipality because the municipality is now doing work on the state's road?
What's interesting is there's another provision with county and city where county can assume some liability for the city roads when there's a project where county provides aid to the locality, the road, that they can expressly assume liability, that the city would otherwise have. So there's that kind of sharing. You'd have to look at each individual provision and see what's possible. Some of them do talk about, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's donuts.
Yeah, it is actually. That's a first,
The next meeting.
that's the first in 12 years for me. Donuts will be provided. Yeah, so that's, the best I can say without, pulling up each statute and sort of.
Yeah,
going,
no,
which
it would
shifts
be
which way.
interesting if this did mirror, the relationship was mirrored from the state to a municipality with liability transfer moving upward, then that would, to me, that's noteworthy anyway, that there is an arrangement out there going that direction with a larger and smaller entities.
Expressly stated in statute.
Yeah, and that is true then. It does work that way for a state and municipality. I mean, don't you guys have, isn't Mequon Road,
State highway and there's.
State highway.
Connecting highway
and
as well.
you do maintenance work on, do whatever on the.
Yeah, the city of Mequon is responsible for, that was one of the agreements I know I forwarded. And then the city does the maintenance and the mowing, all the regions in Mequon Road from Port Washington to Cedarburg Road or Highway 57.
And there's a statute of references.
Yep.
Precisely providing for the authority for it too.
How is that different than what's being proposed?
Where's
Well, I
the
think this is
statute?
Rhonda's issue.
It's.
Where's the statute?
It's
Okay, because that's the state.
the state
Yep.
and municipality.
So are we willing to take that and defend it in court? That's really what we're being asked right now.
Well, it's potentially, yeah. So, sir, would you like to?
Sure.
Give your position on-
So I'm Brian Sadak. For those of you who don't know me, I recognize a couple faces here. But I'm the city attorney down in Mequon. And obviously, as Rhonda has indicated, I don't agree with the interpretation that you need to find a specific statute that says you can enter into this agreement. I think the statute that allows you to enter into this agreement is the intergovernmental cooperation statute that she referenced, the 66.0301. My position is that the language of that statute says, basically starts out, says, except as other, in addition to anything that is expressly authorized within the statute, you're able to do these contracts between municipalities, between the municipalities and the county, between the municipalities and the state. And the statute itself says that it's supposed to be given a very liberal interpretation in favor of encouraging cooperation where it is. My position is that if we had to, in every instance, point to a specific statute that says you city and you county can enter into this agreement, we wouldn't need the provisions of 66.0301 because we already have a statutory provision that says you can do this. And so in order to give that intent, in order to look at it, in that liberal interpretation to encourage cooperation between communities, I think you have to read that to suggest that there are plenty of instances where you're going to contract with another municipality. And municipality in the statute is defined to include counties and entities of the state. So I'm not suggesting that it's just within municipalities, but you have to interpret it that there are provisions that are not expressly called for in the statute to say we can do this. And I think that there's examples of that happening. I've identified, a number of instances where median type work and streetscaping is done in other places. Now, some of the places that I've identified fall within one of those specific categories. There's State Highway 241 or 41 as you go from 27th Street out of Milwaukee South. On the northern half of that piece, kind of north of College, no, I guess it's north of 894 as you're going there. The local business improvement districts have an agreement with the state to maintain. They've got fancy median designs that they have going on there. Similarly, as you move south of College, the cities of Oak Creek and Franklin both have streetscaping that they've put in along the 27th Street there, again, with an agreement with the state. Now, recognizing that in both of those cases, the statute says the state can enter into this agreement, so it falls into that, except as otherwise, specifically allowed type situation. But there are instances where I've identified counties and municipalities undertaking the same type of situation. That's the city of Muskego is one example. In fact, Rhonda just was nice enough to forward me the email that she also received this morning, which it's interesting that Muskego told me there was an agreement, and apparently there is. But Muskego has very similar to what we're talking about here. A couple decorative elements within the crossings, some specialized lighting, light poles, street poles that are involved, and then some large planting type areas that are there. That's an instance where, very specifically, this type of project is being done in another area.
Brian, is that between the county and?
The county and Muskego.
Okay.
Yes. Likewise, in Dane County, although they're crazy liberals out there, so who knows whether they're doing it right. But in Dane County, they have agreements with, at least in terms of what I was able to identify, the Village of Windsor and the city of Madison that allows or requires, in fact, both of those communities to maintain, including plowing during the winter, that type of stuff, portions of a county trunk highway that's there. More locally, you have kind of tacit agreements with communities within the county to do this as well. You have Grafton, Port Washington, Saukville, Cedarburg all have on portions of county trunk highways decorative street lighting that they put in. And when those get knocked down and taken over, the county isn't the one that's going in and replacing that decorative element. It's the local municipality that's going in and replacing that street light. Now, the street light versus landscaping, maybe there's an argument that is a little bit different, but it's still nonetheless an example of a circumstance where it's there. The reality is that nothing in life is risk-free. As much as Ron and I would love to be able to tell you in every instance that we're gonna contract away every little bit of liability that potentially is there. Best laid plans sometimes don't work, and creative lawyers, find ways around things that are there. I don't think that that's a concern in this particular case, because when you talk about, you look to try to find the deep pockets. You have, in this case, two municipalities that are doing the contract. Your liability by statute is virtually the same. You have the same limits on bodily injury. You have the same limits in terms of your sovereign immunity to even, can you even be sued for the actions that are there? You have all of the same rules apply, whether it's one or the other. So there's less of an incentive for that creative attorney here to say, hey, we're going to try to end around this agreement to say that Ozaki County is really the responsible party, because it doesn't get them anything more than what they already have by just suing Mequon directly. And in fact, I mean, they probably won't sue Mequon directly because they won't know the agreement exists. So the question is, when Ozaki County gets sued, you just need to have the faith in Mequon to say, hey, we've got this agreement. We're going to trust you're going to live up to its terms, because that's why we do agreements. And certainly from the city's perspective, it's part of just being part of the greater whole of the county that, you need to cooperate towards these things and get it done. So
Are you insured?
do
Do you have insurance carrier or yourself insured?
city uses the legal Wisconsin municipal insurance.
They agree with that statement.
I mean, certainly, as I would imagine that, I don't know, are you self-insured here? Or are you?
No, yeah.
Yeah, so I would imagine that your insurance carrier is just like the league, which says that, we prefer that you don't take on extra liability that you don't otherwise have. But where you do it, they've traditionally followed through on that agreement and indemnified where appropriate.
Well, question I have is, who plows that area? Does Mequon plow that area, or does the county plow?
No, county plows.
Just like the county did the road down there, right? Yep.
It's our highways. Yeah.
Right,
It's just one more comment too about 66.0301, as Attorney Sajak did say, it's to be interpreted liberally. And it unless expressly prohibited elsewhere, you can enter into one of these agreements. But it also states that each party to the contract, each municipality can only enter into it to the extent of its own lawful powers and duties. So if it has no lawful power and duty with respect to an item that you're trying to contract for, it can't enter into the contract. And they have no duties or powers in county contracts, what I would say.
Unless we grant them such through a contract.
No, it simply talks about their powers and duties. That comes from law.
That's
It says under law.
And that's another example of just, I think the disagreement between the two of us. My position is that the city has the duty to maintain roadways. It has that responsibility. It maintains its own roadways all the time, just like the county has that same duty. The city likewise has, all municipalities do. There isn't, I don't think, any argument that says that the city couldn't contract with Cedarburg to say, hey, maintain this portion of Mequon roads or vice versa. They both have the authority to maintain roadways. The statute doesn't say you have to maintain roadways that are technically the jurisdiction of somebody else. And so I think you still have the authority, you have the duties, you have equal powers in that respect, that we're not doing anything above and beyond what we otherwise are responsible for. It's just that we're doing it in an area that we wouldn't otherwise typically do it in by virtue of this cooperation.
And that also goes back to the issue, can we contract away our liability for what happens on those medians?
Rhonda, could we contract with a private firm to mow the medians on Fort Washington Road?
Ourselves?
Yeah.
John, we enter into highway contracts with private.
Yeah, I'm assuming so. I mean, we hire contractors to repair roads.
And I would think that
For me.
if those contracts have indemnification clauses, I would think, if they're the contract,
Yeah.
right? So the issue then is we're not hiring a contractor in a sense. We are potentially hiring a municipality. We're not compensating them. The benefit, the consideration they're getting out of this agreement is that they get a beautiful streetscape.
And they're responsible for their citizens' taxpayer dollars, et
Mhm.
cetera.
Yeah.
And their citizens are only liable what they're liable for, you know, and again, the problem comes down is how is a reviewing court going to review
Yeah.
this? When you look at these collective provisions, 66.0301, the highway statutes generally and all the exceptions. And authorizations and non-exceptions and non-authorizations, how does that shake out? I think it's an interesting question. I mean, one could certainly request the attorney general for an opinion. As Marty well knows, that it's gonna take a year and a half or
Yeah,
more.
right.
We
So-
probably should have gotten on that, you know, a couple years ago. This project's been percolating for a while.
Yeah.
Sort of nobody's made that request. I don't know, it's necessarily my responsibility to do that. We're being approached with a request.
Mhm.
You know, I'm asking somebody to connect the dots here a little more securely. And I think this is the best either Attorney Sadrick or I have come up.
Okay, comments, discussion, yes.
Well, I'm in that,
Justin?
I live there, so I'm in that shopping center every day and wife is there twice a day, and I think this will be great, except two things, and one, the trees will block some visibility. You have a lot of, not a lot, you have, she's been T-boned coming out of Sendix on that road. And I don't know whether, and trees along the edge kind of bothered that. I'm concerned that the trees in the median can have some impact on the visibility because there are so many driveways. I mean, between McFun Road and Steins, there are, I have to count them.
Right, but
10.
that's part of us having a chance earlier to talk about the design.
The
This is
design would
about
be to
legal stuff.
eliminate the trees. That would be my point. Because I'm worried about the block. Second part about the design is if you put in these indicated sidewalk, crosswalks, does that imply or give pedestrians the big thought that traffic's gonna stop for me? Because traffic's not gonna stop for them, and if they see, oh, let's walk up there because there's a pathway across or an indicated area, and will that give them any impression? Because there's stoplights there.
That's what I was gonna say. I believe the only locations, and Luke, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only areas they have those crosswalks designated are where there are streetlights.
Correct.
So,
Be a walk,
All
don't
right.
walk.
yeah, exactly.
Well, then it's just the trees. I mean, it looks nice, it's great on McRun Road. My son was T-boned coming out of Homestead. The woman who hit him. I mean, eastbound said the trees. I didn't see him coming because trees were in the way. And I think the insurance companies tried to sue the city, but anyway, that would be my issue is the visibility.
Yeah, and certainly, the designer probably could be better to it than I can, but there are design standards that you undergo based on the few factors, level of traffic, the speed limit, that kind of stuff that kind of dictate what type of things would be allowed in various areas. Do you allow trees, not trees? How big of an obstruction can you have, in terms of height? Those factors that all play into it. And certainly the design was done taking into account all of those, federal standards. So.
Their vision triangle that we work with, so that, as you said, when intersection, a triangle to view each traffic coming in each direction, so. We did look at that and tried to concentrate things towards the middle of the islands, but there are a lot of driveways up there.
Other comments?
I have a bunch. I'm gonna say you really lost me with your comment about the liberals in Madison. I think that was a really stupid thing to say. Secondly, if you're asking us to go on faith, you lose the argument sake on. This is coming from someone who has nothing to lose. It's the county that's really looking to be hung out here to dry, and our taxpayers. Along with his, but ours are really the ones being potentially hung out to dry.
Would
I
you think
wouldn't
this
have-
will cause a lot more accidents?
I'm not even worried about that. It's not about that. It's about who gets stuck with the bill. Your comment about faith, I think, was a terrible. I wouldn't go on faith on anything. It's either in writing or it isn't. I'm with you. It's not specifically asked for in the legislature, but it's not talked about. But I don't think it's reasonable for us to be the test case for that. And finally, this should have been looked at from the legislature years ago. You've had 5 years on this. I can't believe that is a subject still hanging out there. That feels like it should have been the first thing taken care of before any of this got discussed. Period.
Well, the way I look at it, because they didn't do it in the beginning. What's the big deal about waiting another year and a half if you have to wait for a decision to come back?
I don't see how we could move forward without
Yeah.
that answer.
Right. So it's not beautified for another year and a half. Is that gonna ruin Mech One?
No.
No, it's not.
But in the
I'd rather
meantime,
have
we're
the
being
dots
asked to
connect-
extend our
connected.
liability.
And I was sitting there 2 years from now when somebody sues us, and says, well, we never should have did that. Well, I'd rather wait a year and a half.
And get the AG opinion or
Yeah.
pursue
Yes.
legislative
That
clarity.
seems perfectly reasonable.
From our legislators.
I'm waiting 5 years for my road to be done.
Right, so this isn't going anywhere. And that
Was that
seems like
5
the
years
most
ago?
foundational piece of this that needs to get taken care of first. It's foundational.
The legal question. Yes, okay.
When the road was built, who designed the boulevard?
That would have been us. That would have been county.
And you talk about them buying, city of Mequon buying it back from us?
Oh,
Just the
not a matter
boulevard?
of buying. No, I mean, I think,
Could the county sell them boulevards off?
no, I don't think there's any ability to sell it off again. I think it would be, it's either our maintenance, it's either our, again, I think from a selling standpoint, it would be simply a matter of that you would, similar to what we did with County Trunk Highway P last year, that we would revert the jurisdiction to the lower level municipality. That in essence, the city of Mequon could look at taking over Highway W south of Mequon Road. And then they would have ownership of it, and then they would make all decisions on it. But no, it wouldn't be a piece and parcel. It would either be, again, finding this approval through the maintenance agreement. Or,
Now, what if it was the other way around? What if city is that this is what we want to have done? We'll contract with the county and pay the county. And the county will put these in and the county will maintain them, but we'll pay for it.
Sure.
And have a perpetuity contract, then we manage it and we
Sure.
take care of it, and Mequon gets the pretty view, and I'm sure you can do it probably less expensively than Mequon could do it anyway. But you could.
I think it would become a staffing issue. You would need to look at what kind of staffing levels you would suddenly need to add.
Also getting
If we have people out there, because again, I'm sure you've all seen in different cities and villages during the summer, you know, they'll have city or village staff on a lot of the highways, doing the flowers, doing the hanging baskets in downtown Cedarburg. You know, and Grafton, yeah, and again, so it just becomes a staffing issue. And again, I don't know that I want to start trying to add staff to try to manage green landscaping or trees and such, so.
I suspect there's probably a statutory. Contract with the county to look for them. I believe there probably is.
Yeah,
I have to locate that here real quick, but to answer your question, I suspect there is such a.
Randy, you have a lot more confidence in our legislators than I do. I think that. What they write, I mean,
that's a very old document.
That's law. What they write is the law.
that
They're not
doesn't-
winging it on faith. They put it in writing.
Right, even though they're idiots sometimes.
And my concern with the courts is simply to look at, say, well, gee, there's these authorizations all over the place, but there isn't one for this. And these authorizations address things like liability, big issues. So why didn't the legislature provide for this? And that's assuming they did. There's a lot of statutes here. I just haven't been able to find one. You know, and a common thing for a appellate court to do is the legislature's silence means they didn't authorize it. You can't shift your liability.
I hope they did think that all through, but I doubt it.
Well, I would, I guess my comments are, I always appreciate, Corporation Counsel Gordon's, cautions. I think, tilts to the side of being very cautious, and that's what we want. We want somebody on our team that's gonna raise the flag if there's a flag to be raised, so I really do appreciate that. At the same time, I look at this as being, not all that different than if we hired, Frank's, landscaping to do the work and shift the liability to them, although I know it's a municipality and whatnot. And I see the upside as Mequon, being able to beautify a key corridor of their municipality. And the downside being potentially, what we'd have an issue with if there was a lawsuit, would we get dragged in? Would our indemnification hold or not? Now, the one that's written in here currently is not at all what I'd like to see. So, my position would be to go back and rewrite an MOU that is a lot stronger and more encompassing. And I would be in favor, despite the potential risk, because there's risk with everything. And whenever you're entering an agreement, you shouldn't enter an agreement with somebody you don't trust. You shouldn't. So, do we have a trusting relationship? I think we do. And some of that is faith. And I'm not talking blind faith, right? So that would be my position would be to rewrite this agreement and move forward. I think I'm in the minority on the committee.
Well, since I've seen 4 accidents in the media in the village of Grafton, where all they're just nice cement things that we had, flower gardens, stuff like that, got hit by cars, trucks, whatever it was. So maybe you can ask their people that are insurers that, who else paid for that? Because the flower things got damaged.
Who did the work? I mean, I assume.
The village took care of it. They built that.
Yeah, so I assume there's
Yeah.
there's no entity, we're not transferring it, it's just the village did their own
No.
thing. So
So they were responsible for.
Yeah, I would think
Going to
so.
court for whoever smashed into it.
So I think we're looking for some kind of direction. We could approve the current MOU and say, have at it. We could, direct a new MOU be written and bring it back. We could vote this down and say we're not doing it. We could direct their corporation counsel or somebody to pursue the AG. We could direct somebody to contact our legislators and get a statute done like we clarified the bridge aid thing a year or two ago. What would the committee like to do?
Only thing I would add in there is, again, I think Rhonda would support me on this again. I think from our standpoint, this is something the city is interested in doing. If the committee looks for an AG opinion or for legislature action, I would say you would be directing staff to notify the city of Mequon to
Thank
move
you
forward
for
on
the
those
clarification.
items.
I agree
Just,
with that.
you know,
That they're the
Just-
ones who want.
Just a clarification on that. I mean,
Yep.
certainly I don't have any problems taking over the laboring or on preparing the request and that kind of stuff. The request, though, has to come from the county. The city doesn't have the ability to go to the AG's office and say, give me an
Okay.
opinion in the same way that the county does.
I would have to do.
Okay.
Hearing that request.
Okay,
Certainly.
I'm trying to help you out,
To
Rhonda.
him. Yep, yep. I'm the one with statutory authority. I don't know where he can go. I don't know if he can go to the League of Municipalities or what he can do, but.
I make a motion, we do that. We throw all this out and get it answered by the state.
Get what?
Seek.
We
Seek
seek state level
clarification.
clarification before we utter another syllable about this.
Okay, so
Well,
moved and
my
seconded.
syllable that I'm uttering. It's, I think it's a great plan, and I think it'll help that area.
Mhm.
Regardless of my comments about the trees, I have confidence that they would plant. Blue spruce trees along, make a row or arborvitae, so I'm okay with that. Frankly, the fact that the rule is silent on it tells me that it's okay.
Are you an attorney?
Well, let's,
And that-
supervisor, let's not, yeah, let's not do
Because
that.
I'm not pro-regulation. I would rather there be things that we can make a decision on rather than be told by Madison what we can and cannot do. So it doesn't say we can't. Therefore, I think we can. And I agree with John that Rhonda does a great job telling us about the risks, and you brought that up too, and that's wonderful. But I also think a counterpoint is to tell us what we can do, not what we can't do. And I haven't heard any reason we can't do this. So if it ever came to a vote, I'm gonna vote to support this. And with an updated MOU and whatever needs to be put in the MOU.
Okay, very good. Any other comments? Anybody else to the motion to seek state clarification?
I have a hard time just trusting faith. That's not gonna work.
And
No.
I'll tell you too, the attorney general opinion will not give you binding. It will give you persuasive, it's helpful, it's another voice, sort of one statement, position state. Courts will still do what they will, and it's the attorney general not buying the courts in terms of interpreting statute. Just want you to know that, but I find it very helpful to engage in that exercise and find out what they would have to say.
So just to recap for you guys, we had an issue with Town Bridge Aid. Our Corporation Council brought up that the statute really didn't explicitly provide for bridge aid in a scenario where the state controlled the project and funded most of the project. Even though many counties operated that way, it wasn't explicitly stated. We did seek an AG opinion. It took 1.5 years, and that was the only AG opinion that they did in that year. One, and it was ours. So it's easy to say, let's get an AG opinion, but we could be 2 years from now and still not have it. It did come down, and then then they said no, based on their interpretation, can't do it, even though all these other counties do it. So we sought legislative relief, and the legislature passed a bill and was signed by the governor to correct the statute. It wasn't even in the area that we thought the issue would be. It was in the other part of the statute that the AG said, this is the problem over here. So anyway, it got fixed. So this is not just boom, boom, we'll have this in 3 months or even a year. We might, I don't know, we might never get it in a sense, right? So just saying that.
And on that point, they don't have to issue. I think this is something that's they highly likely would address. But there are times in which the AG declines to issue.
So, anything else to the motion? Motion being to seek state clarification. Let's go a show of hands here. I think we have votes on both sides. All those in favor of seeking state clarification, would you raise your hand? All those opposed?
Wait a minute. Would you restate the question?
Yeah, let me restate the question, because I was surprised to see.
I was surprised to see your hand.
So we are,
End up really.
we're basically pushing this off so that we seek state clarification. So we're saying, nope, we're not gonna do this until we get state clarification. That's the motion. So a vote in favor would say, yes, let's not do this, let's seek state. So once again, okay, all in favor of seeking state clarification, and I should have added, not moving forward with this at this time, raise your hand, please. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. On a vote of 3-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian. Rhonda.
Luke, Brian, I'm assuming you'll let city staff know.
Yep.
And then have Kristen give you a call.
Okay.
Kristen being Kristen Lundy, the city of Mequon Director of Public Works.
Hopefully someone from the AG's office lives in Mequon.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. Well, it's almost adjournment time. Um. Facilities management action item, fairgrounds memorandum of understanding.
We have Melissa Alexander, our sales and marketing coordinator for Fairgrounds here. I'll give a quick little sum. Oh, you're up at the main table. I know. I'll give a quick summation and then just jump in when I'm wrong or corrections. But in essence, we have an ongoing about every 5-year annual contract with 4-H in using our fairgrounds. So that obviously part of Melissa's job is to sell the pavilion, sell the curler building and rentals and those kind of things. And then she works hand in hand with 4-H to make sure that they have it when they need it, or that they're aware that we're using it, we're going to be renting it out, and that they can't use it during that time. And so you've been on this for about 1.5 years, 2 years? 2.5. Time flies.
Yeah.
Something like that.
2-ish, less than 10.
Yeah,
Okay.
less than 5.
And so we were coming up, we're in the 5th year of a 5-year annual agreement. There's been some changeover in staff with UW Extension, who is kind of the umbrella over 4-H. 4-H is a very wide and deep organization with lots of groups, whether it be the dog, training, the bow and arrow, the crafts, and whatever else. And so there was discussions between Melissa and the UW Extension person, say, hey, let's get some clarification. Let's get a little bit better record keeping so we know who's in there, when they're in there, if the dog group isn't cleaning up, if the arrow group isn't cleaning up, who's responsible? Because sometimes there's also a little bit of a freewheeling where there's just a box with a key on it, a box with a key in it, that a lot of the groups will come. And I think if they see a dark building, they'll go in there and start using it. And then it becomes, well, okay. And again, I don't think there's been significant issues with cleanliness, but the concept is, okay, when suddenly the garbage has been full and no one took it out, who was supposed to be? We didn't have anything on the schedule. We don't know. And so I think Melissa's conversation with UW Extension was, let's go ahead. Number one, relook at the MOU. And so you have that, and there's lots of written in red on there that are kind of updated items. Really, those items focus on 4 main things. One, it changes it from a 5-year agreement to kind of an annual contract. Just to make sure that every year kind of the dates are verified and everything looks good as far as which dates are with things are occurring. 2, reservation form, it kind of formalizes a process so that UW Extension is aware when a request is made. That request comes then through UW Extension to Melissa, so then she can put it in on the calendar. And so then there's a verification that yes, it's been received, yes, it's on the calendar. And again, there's kind of that double check to make sure things look good. Cleanup fees, just again, something that hasn't been significantly an issue, but to at least make people aware that, hey, if you're going to leave a mess, we're going to have our fairground staff clean it up and then charge you for their time and effort. And then lastly, just kind of the haunt itself, for those of you, I'm sure you've all been in October when it's the haunted house on the Ozaukee County Fairgrounds run by a private organization, the Haunt, and just kind of cleaning up some of those dates as well as a slight increase in fees. I think the cost was about $1,500. I think Ryan Takis thought that $2,000 would cover everything that they currently put into it for electricity and a little bit of cleanup and that kind of thing. So those are the main things that are here. Again, certainly we can do an annual contract. I think my recommendation though was to look at that the committee, with whatever changes they wanted, could approve the MOU for up to 5 years with annual authorization by the marketing sales and coordinator. That way, if there's nothing major that's coming, it doesn't have to come back here each year. She can just make sure she has that connection with UW Extension. Anything else you would like to fill in, Melissa?
The Horse and Pony Club, which falls under the 4-H, is looking to start hosting shows in addition to clinics and open rides. So that's something that's new, just because it's a totally different set of skills and setup and things that we need to do as a staff. So we're working with them. While in the MOU, it currently says $100 per day per rental. If they were to do that, we would be bumping out a horse show that would make about $5,000 to $7,000 a weekend. And I have no problem allowing them to do this because we coexist. It's a partnership. But the big fear that they have in a lot of these other groups is, in the past, the person before me would just call and say, well, you're bumped. We found someone else. You have to figure out something else. And I don't think that's fair. Because if you have kids training and practicing for a horse show 30 days in advance, you can say, sorry, we can't do it anymore. So I would like to find a way to either give them the option to say, yes, we can put you on the calendar for this $100 a day, with the potential that if we have another client coming in, or we can give you just the daily rate, no stall charges of $500. There's no, you will not get bumped. This is your date. It's solidified type of a situation. I know that with the meetings, it's a little bit different because on a monthly basis, there's about 20 4-H club meetings. So it runs a little bit differently and they're all aware. And I really do my best to make sure that if someone's coming in, there's a 15-minute window before the next group can come in. So an example is I'm working with Cedarburg Palms through the Parks and Rec. They're renting our facilities 2 days a week because they need a larger practice space. Well, yes, I approved that. Then there's a window of 15 minutes where a 4-H club comes in and then they move into the other room. So it's definitely a game of Tetris, but trying to ensure that everybody has a place to do what they need, yet making sure that we are still in the black.
Do you have a suggestion of where we would add this language? Because I think what your concept is they currently pay $100 versus making thousands. And
Right.
so the concept is maybe not charge them the thousands, but maybe charge them half of that or some.
Just something so that,
Variation.
because our staff would still need to be there. Yes, it's a fully run 4-H function, but our staff still should be there. And I don't think we would be able to do wages for $100 a day.
How many is the word staff?
One.
Okay. All right. Picturing a bunch of people. Okay, so it's one person.
Full-time
All right.
and then multiples.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, so it's not a league.
No. We're pretty
Well-
self-sufficient.
Yeah. But you don't want to scare those people away with a huge fee. And they're consistent. They're fairly consistent renters.
Sure.
The Pony Club versus the big show.
So I give them as many open ride is what it's called as I can. They can just come in, no one is using the facility. They can come in, they can practice. But
Okay.
for a sanctioned show, they have to have certain requirements, registration fees, number of people, judges, all of these different elements. Which is why it's a bigger deal. You have to plan farther ahead. You have to ensure that you have all of these working pieces.
So the sanctioned shows are what's bumping the casual.
Correct.
Okay, they're not the same too.
Correct. So we have about 6 or 7 different clubs that come in throughout the state and they put on these very large horse shows versus the 4-H who puts on free rides or clinics or whatever. We actually have someone who is bringing in a clinician from Germany this year, which is really cool.
Use. It wasn't close enough attention at the beginning. So, we would allow a $7,000 show to be bumped.
No, the 4-H would
The
be
other way.
bumped.
Yeah.
Other direction. Yes, we would, it isn't, again, we want to be in the black.
Yeah,
That's always the goal for me. No,
Good.
if 4-H open ride or show or something is scheduled and someone calls me and wants to put on this large horse show.
Yeah.
They're obviously gonna take the priority, but I'm trying to figure out a way that if we are able to collect just a little bit more from the 4-H, I can work with other people to give them available weekends. Typically, I can offer people 2 or 3 weekends to choose from. Because once someone is on the calendar, I don't bump them. Unless it's a 4-H club meeting or, okay,
I get that. Okay, this 4-H has it scheduled, the $7,000 show calls and says, we want that weekend, and you're gonna say yes to the $7,000 show.
yes,
Okay, so now we are bumping 4-H, which I'm
Correct.
not disagreeing with. But you said we don't want to bump somebody. And I don't understand how more fees make that, I don't.
I think the way I interpret it, and again, I may be wrong, that currently there are 2 options. There's the option 1, which is 4-H saying we just want an open ride is $100. And there's option 2, which is private group comes in to do a large show. She's looking for a third option that is 4-H says we want to reserve it for our own show that we won't be bumped by. And so I think the point is that, well, okay, that needs to be more than $100.
Well, yeah, definitely. But then,
But then what value is there? And I don't know if you have a suggestion. To me, I'm looking at the MOU, and what we may have to do is take the MOU back and under item 3 on packet page 6. You know, there specifically talks about the show arena, dairy bar and picnic gazebo. And about 5th bullet down at the bottom of page 6 is horse barn and outdoor arena used by Horse and Pony Project. Talks about the daily rental, talks about daily rental for meeting space, open rides. What I'm kind of thinking is we may just need to add, based on what you're asking for, we may need to add another item under that.
Right.
That says if they want to block off a weekend that is unable to be buzzed. What is the value of that?
So when someone calls with a horse show, let's say it's perfect, they want July 10th. I can say, I don't have July 10th, but these are the other weekends I have available. Well, I can only do July 10th. Okay, if it is Kelly's horse show and it's already scheduled, I'm not bumping them because the contract is signed, they're on there. That's how,
Sports show is a
Small one?
no, it's Kelly, it's an example.
Yeah, but
Well, a big,
is
is
it-
it the 4-H people or the
Yeah,
big
right.
statewide horse
Right.
show?
So I've never horse show before. This is the first
That's
year.
what
This
the
is
full picture look at.
this is something completely
Okay.
new. So they can come in and do open rides and I can let them
If
know
available.
if it's available 30 days or less in advance for $100 a day.
But
If
it's
they
subject to being
want-
bumped.
It's subject to being bumped. But if they want to come in and host their own horse show, which is something they want to do this year for the first time, this is new ground.
it is new ground, but the issue I have then, if the idea is to be in the black, is that we're providing an avenue whereby we say no to the $7,000 or $8,000 horse show. Right now, there is no avenue for that. $7,000 or
Right.
$8,000 horse show calls up, yep, sorry, you're out. What we're providing for is for, I think I heard the term $500 or something like that, that we're gonna provide a lane for $500 to lock that space, and then we're gonna say no to the $7,000 or $8,000 horse show for the $500. That's going in the opposite direction, in my mind, of profitability.
I think that's the question, Marty, is,
Right.
you know, what is, because we have a relationship with 4-H,
Yes.
is that discount worth $10? Instead of 7,000, we're gonna charge them $6,990. Or is there a $2,000?
Right.
Right.
Or is it a $6,500, to your point, say, yep, we'll give them a $6,500 discount and only charge $500.
Right.
I don't know if you have a
Because
suggestion.
At the end of the day, it has been explained to me that the name of the facility is still Ozaukee County Fairgrounds. And we need to be able to coexist because it is a shared space. How can we do that?
Shared with,
4-H, Egg Society, whoever all of these people are, I'm still trying to figure it out.
So the big horse shows are private entities,
Correct.
Yeah.
unrelated to what you just said.
Correct,
They're an outside group, but they're bringing a gold bar.
correct.
Okay.
Most of
Sound
the time-
incompatible,
They,
the desires here.
correct.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm here. At the end of the day, someone calls with one of these private horse shows. They say, what availability do you have in the month of June? I pull up the calendar, and if they're the first person who calls, I have every weekend. They say, okay, I want to put a tentative hold on this one, send me the paperwork. At the end of the day, that's how the process works for everybody. Whether you are 4-H, the president, anybody, it doesn't matter. That's what it is. I am trying to find a way to coexist and not make one group really upset, because that's
that's been.
where I sit. Yes,
Or that has been a problem.
that has been a long-standing problem with that entire organization. And then when I came in and I said, this is no longer a free-for-all, I lost a lot of friends, which is fine. I don't need a lot of friends. But we do need to find a way to try and make as many people happy as we can.
Well, I appreciate your focus on all of those things very much.
Well, the people coming in for $100 a day, how many times do they do this? Approximately in a year?
Is this being recorded?
Just
Yeah.
approximately.
Yes. Smile.
I would say they come in.
Okay, that's it.
That often?
We're very booked,
Oh, okay.
Why did you do that then?
because if there's all of a sudden an open weekend
Mhm.
and I didn't inform people in the right amount of time. I don't need someone to come back and say, wow, we could have.
Okay, so it gets used often. If there's availability.
If there's availability,
They'll-
I
they'll
give
let you-
all of the available dates.
Yeah.
But they dwindle, they get less and less as the summer season comes
Right.
because more people want horse shows. Like if I'm looking at the calendar for this year. We start horse shows the second weekend of May.
Last year, we booked how many private horse shows? I want to say probably 8-ish.
No, I think it was more, I'll count really fast.
Big ones,
Yes,
Yeah,
And they take up the whole weekend.
the whole,
typically.
yes.
Okay.
Very rarely is
So
there
you
a
still got
1 day
money
horse.
They
for-
bring in the RVs,
These
yeah,
are
they
cash
park
cows.
RVs.
Right.
Yeah, They bring in RVs, they bring.
Okay.
Well, my point is, if you got Monday through Thursday for the other people, they're getting a lot of days. Well,
Yeah.
I'll bet nobody.
But
wants
again,
to
her-
Monday through Thursday.
Well, 4-H does.
Well,
Again, I think, but her purpose is to look at, she's trying to find an avenue, not for those dailies. She's trying to find an avenue that 4-H Horse and Pony wants to put on its own show. And they're saying, well, the only language in here is $100 per day. Now, I guess, and the committee could say, hey, if you want to reserve it as a private entity, that's fine. That's the $7,000. You do that. I think her point is, okay, we're semi-partners in this land. And so is there some discount? I don't know. Have you had
11.
discussions with them about
11 horse
11
shows.
horse shows about what a fair cost would be?
That's a conversation that.
Is that 11
it's
weekends?
objectable? Yeah, 11.
Which is
weekends.
pretty much the whole summer.
Literally the
Yeah.
entire summer.
Okay, so you're really, anybody else who wants it, who's a small time player, is just getting stuck into these little cracks that are still available.
What do you mean small time player?
Well, the 4-H versus these big
Sorry.
arena shows.
So I set aside the weekend before the Ozaki County Fair for the 4-H. So they can do open rides, they can practice, they can do whatever it is. I'm not a horse person. I apologize if I am misspeaking. So they can prepare, practice, do all of the things that they need to do. That is something that it's an unspoken rule, which is fine. It's not a big deal. Whenever there is another open weekend, we allow them to come in and do open rides and practice. That is what it has been, and that is what we try to do. But when it's 11 weekends, it's not much. Yeah. Because we had someone come in last weekend who wanted to do a 1-day show in September. Awesome, come on in, you know? We're not going to say just because you wanted to do a 1-day paid show, we're going to deny you. We just have to shuffle or do whatever we need to do.
Have they said how many shows they want to do 4-H?
One,
They want
as of
one.
right now,
One,
yeah.
Yeah, so the question is, could we give them a weekend, block it out, and how much should it cost?
That's why I'm here, yes.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on it?
My initial suggestion was when someone comes in and books a horse show, it's $500 a day. And then there's an additional cost for stalls, shavings. And then there can be some other things too. But I thought to try and alleviate some of those charges for 4-H because it is an
Right,
organization
yeah.
to just do the $500 a day. So if they wanted to do a 1-day show, it's 500, a 2-day show, it's 1,000. Because they are still charging people to come in and participate at their show.
Are we allowed to charge different prices? Do you charge for the big shows a different rate?
I do not,
Okay,
So we'd just be waiving those other charges for 4-H.
correct.
Doesn't make logical sense, it's one way to do it.
oh,
Would it cover our costs?
So the equipment that we use, okay, sorry, let me backtrack a little bit. We borrow or coexist using the same equipment that the 4-H has. So that's the tractor, the drag, which makes little lines in the dirt. The water tank and some other things. So at the end of the year, we need to come up with a tally on everything that we used, and then we are supposed to then pay them that money,
4-H.
4-H.
this is rent on their equipment that we're borrowing for their needs.
Correct.
Okay,
So-
or the other shows needs.
Or
Okay,
anyone's
got it.
needs,
Okay,
yes.
so we're using it for all shows.
Correct. So one of the suggestions that I had initially given them was, okay, because this comes out to be like $1,200 to $1,500, why don't you do a show and then that's null and void? Then there's no money back and forth.
Right.
The other option I gave them was the $500 a day, which again, it's ultimately gonna be null and void. Because then it's $200 to $500. They came back with current MOU states it's $100 a day. So, because this is new territory, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come and speak to you today, because
Thank you.
It
Thank you
is-
for clarifying this, but I think
Yeah.
I got it.
Am I hearing that you want to give them a free show and that covers everything,
yes, then there's no,
Just tit
we
for
don't
tat,
need,
we're done.
correct.
I like
Okay.
that.
assuming that everybody feels like they win on that deal?
Right,
Okay,
because we do all of the maintenance on the equipment, we store the equipment, we do all of it. However, they initially purchased it.
Who owns Monroe? Pavings and
I'm so
who
sorry.
owns Monroe?
That's a good question. So if it's a 4-H show, they are required to empty and clean and do all of that themselves.
Property.
No, they put it into a pile and then Fig uses the skid. A private horse show that comes in, you have two choices. You can clean out the stall yourself, or we charge you $25 cleaning fee. And then essentially we do the same thing. The second half of the cleanup is still us.
but you're asking, how does it get off site?
Yeah,
I don't
Like,
know the
Do
answer.
you
to
have a
that.
farmer you're contracting with, just that
Probably.
goes into their, okay, that suddenly just gets done on its own?
It's magic.
All right.
I do.
That's what I hear.
I think those are the manure elves.
Sounds like a mystery.
Yes.
Just goes away.
Where I draw the line.
Hold on.
Was your suggestion of this compromise exchange, is that acceptable to them?
The response I received was in the current MOU, it says $100 a day. So
And
they didn't respond to my suggestions at all.
And they are under contract,
who's
we
they?
are under,
The Horse and Pony
4-H.
project, which falls under 4-H,
and we have a signed agreement, they have a signed agreement with us,
It's this-
currently valid?
it's an
Yes.
MOU, yes,
Okay.
but they are the ones who initiated the updated MOU. So if this MOU that we're talking about right now goes into effect, that's what we can change. Or the MOU that we currently have expires next year, says $100 a day. I would just like to be clear that the extension office is the one who initiated the updated MOU to be done now.
The issue there, Dan, is just, again, the $100 a day one though, that can be bumped at any time.
Okay,
So that they're looking for a guarantee
They
that
want
they can
guaranteed
lock in a
space.
weekend.
Let me ask
Without
a
being
question.
bumped.
Yes.
Somebody who did scheduling for trying to get volleyball in, the teams that wanted basketball, and then you see soccer, one of them,
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
right? How come April, May, and September, and October, you can't do stuff? Can I
Where?
Ask that question.
You'd have to ask horse people.
Why, do they all die or?
I don't know, maybe horses don't like running in September. I have no idea. I'm not a horse person.
It was in September.
School probably.
it's,
I know that,
your 11 weeks is summer.
I know that an issue that we have
A
faced,
weekend for the big.
Again, we'll schedule them if they want to. I'm not the one making that decision.
I do know that one of the issues is the water in the spring, if it's thawed or not. That's our main issue, if you will. And then I guess customarily, the end of September is when horse shows end. We had a horse show the third weekend in September, but then we have to then turn over the facilities to the haunt.
Hmm.
So we can't host one even if we wanted to.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Well, I think that she seemed to come up with a very reasonable compromise. And I think we have to recognize that 4-H is a really thing in our county. We do a lot of things with him and for him. Probably have a lot of chairman of our board who might have been 4-Hers and a lot of support for 4-H. So I'd be inclined to say, gee, if we can swap, we can use your stuff. We'll take care of it. You can have your show. They'd be idiots not to let us do it. But I've used that.
In
for
order
a
to
couple of times.
secure-
That's a little strong.
in order to secure a date.
Correct.
That's
This
not-
is your weekend.
Yeah.
And then I've spoken with them. I would grant them one weekend,
That's
yeah.
totally reasonable.
And then I would still allow them to use the weekend before the fair because they're doing a lot of setup, they're doing practice, they're getting their stalls ready. That's not a problem. I've
Right.
kept that blocked off for them for my entire existence in this position.
Okay, so what do we have to change?
So could we add language then that
I think that would be great.
stipulates the use of the equipment? I'd like to see a statement in there that when the equipment needs to be replaced, they would replace it. You know, if the maintenance is on us, they can keep deferring that, but we keep running up dollars, spending money maintaining something that should be replaced, so.
Yeah.
If we had language that in exchange for a guaranteed date, we could use their equipment for the year and they would replace the equipment when requested. I think your plan is great.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll,
When
the other
requested-
option is, okay, rent it per the contract and pay for everything, right? I mean, or get bumped.
Right.
So I think that's a good plan.
Who makes the decision of when the equipment needs to be replaced?
And I'd like us to make that decision.
Well,
Very-
that could have been a few years ago.
Well, so now we're into that.
That's a
Right.
separate issue.
Right, that is a Ryan Takis question. There's a tractor that has a lot of maintenance that has been done on it.
Yeah, that doesn't, but it's in their interest not to do anything about that because we're paying the maintenance. So,
Right.
so that has to get changed. For profitability.
I can start that conversation,
Excellent.
but I will
Not
then
this
hand it over to Ryan Takis.
Okay.
I have some notes. I'm probably, from my standpoint, I probably would want to see this, I don't know, what Melissa thinks, if you're okay holding it for another month. Cause I think I would rather have this language in there.
Yeah.
Before
Okay.
you guys approve it. My concern is, again, if it was one item, then I would say, okay, but the minute we start including equipment, well, now that's touching on item number 4, which directly lays out how we
Okay,
do things. And if suddenly we're removing those,
This just got.
add in,
Right.
you know,
Don't we just buy them as already Bobcat?
It is.
well, no, not for us,
That's fine.
but it's used, I'm sure, by others as well on the fair.
Always for plowing and.
Yep, yep.
Mhm.
That's what Ryan Figurino uses for a lot of what he does.
Okay.
Do you bring the equipment over here to repair or if it needs to?
Nope, he does it on site and my cousin, who is a very good mechanic, does it on site as well. It's a family affair over there.
That's why it's called 4-H.
Yes.
So do we have a motion then to, direct staff to update the
like
MOU
that,
and bring
yeah.
it back next
month?
meeting?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
Supervisor
I make that
Grabo,
motion.
second. Second. All right, other Tom, Vogel? No, I'm for it. Okay, all in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Melissa, very, very
You're
much.
very welcome.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
going around 3 or 4 times, so I
No,
kind of get it.
Take quite a while to figure out the process, so.
Well, you're dedicated, though. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, transit. You have to go. Okay.
Facility financials.
Oh, I'm sorry, facility. Finance. Yeah, thanks, Dan. All right.
On facility financials,
I went through this, but. Only one. And the year ends.
Expenses
Year
were
end one.
fringe benefit thing, and that was.
And they were supposed to fix that, but
Okay. We're on back of page 10.
well, the 319, yeah, that's $300 instead of $100. So the percentage does not look great. I'm not overly
I'm not concerned
concerned.
about that. The interternal and, you know, something, it's.
Yeah, there was, the fringe should have been going to
fairgrounds.
fairgrounds, but I think they were charging a full-time Ryan Figurino to Justice Center. And I can ask him about that again.
Okay. No, all right. On the fairgrounds. Nothing
So
really
you're talking
there.
about fringe benefits, that wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
it's in
yeah,
the
I
wrong.
I see it.
because one's at 153% and the fairgrounds is only at 50%.
That's why the department charge is 183. Yeah, percent. That's.
That may have been just the interdepartment. I would have to confirm exactly what the interdepartment charges are. That maybe that highway did some work out there
Yeah.
for them. That they
Budget
weren't
was
expecting to do.
21.
Because again, they may have other budget monies just in general maintenance, and instead they thought it would be easier for us to do it. I'm not sure, I would have to check on that.
Well, you went from 21,000, then you amended the budget to 11,473.
No,
No,
20 was the
actual.
actual, the budget was 11.
Yeah.
So we were about double the budget.
Yeah, so everything's pretty much in line, except we're missing 20 grand in fringe benefits. At least, probably more. Right, from the bird column.
Yeah.
Yeah, 36.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could get those updated, that'd be great. Bring it back. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Transit
No.
financial or facility financials? All right, transit ridership.
Nice to see that it's going up.
It is, we're up about 9,500
Yeah.
right from last year.
Yeah, that's.
It's very good.
We're still dialing in things with the new software. There's always a learning curve and surprises, things we didn't think of. And,
It's still very as positive as initial.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
very pleased. So every day's better.
Lot better than COVID years.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know,
And just the visibility with the software makes a world of difference. I think when I looked yesterday, we had like, when I looked at it like 9 in the morning, we already had like 75 bookings, same day bookings, which we couldn't have done in the past. So, yeah. Yeah,
And this is basically, our the ridership's up 10% without increasing vehicles.
correct. Yeah.
Without increasing, the
Yeah.
capacity, it's just
Yeah.
filling our capacity and making
Yeah.
use of more efficient.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're using the resources we have
Mhm.
to do so. I think when it comes to like the cross-county ridership, which is down,
Mhm.
I don't always trust the numbers from the previous system. And then I believe that the high cost of rides for like the general public in Washington County is part of the reason we took a hit rate. So, because it's affordable for you to ride our service over there, but it's not affordable to come back. So I think people are making just other arrangements, riding with other work and stuff. So, yeah.
Can we look at the cross county differential that
Mhm.
potentially we could collect from Washington County?
I think last year was around $7,000 was the difference, and I think it would be even less this year with the number of rider trips, so. But yeah, we can look at that. So,
Okay.
but like, it's
I
such
know
a
that-
small
Darren
part
knows
of
that I
our,
can call him.
it's just such a small part of our, ridership,
Okay,
that,
Did we get all the vehicles that we were trying to get?
so the larger vehicles are on track for delivery in February, fingers crossed. So that would be 8, it would be 4 Ford Transits and then 4 Ford Cutaways. I'm struggling a little bit with the 4 minivans, which are supplied by Tesco. There was a language issue with Wisdot. And so somebody swiped in and from out of state because nobody in the state could buy the minivans. And bought all of the minivans from Tesco. So we need to get 2025s. So I have an email into Wisdot. Cause like our funding ends from the feds at the end of June. And then from that point forward, instead of 5307 funding, which is the feds, will be under Wisdot, which is 5311. So when I did my applications in December that were due, I put in a capital request for them. But I did not solidify my order for 2025, just because I don't want us to be on the hook for that money. I know they're available for 2025, but because of our precarious date there, if they're not delivered and paid for by that time, and with all of the production issues we've had since COVID. So those 4 minivans are questions. And those were the ones I should have had in 2024 had there not been a language issue. So like when you guys were talking about the legislative, how it's not easy to change. This is a little off topic, but it's so much of the discussion today. When we go to tier C, when we go under WISTAT, our funding will be 53% because of a language issue that references the 2010 census instead of the most recent census. Right now, we're getting 57% matching funds from WISTAT and the feds. But because of that word 2010, instead of saying the most recent census, which we're going off the 2020 census. So like those little discrepancies. So the negotiation between Tesco and WISTAT, it was a nicer vehicle, the Chrysler Pacifica versus what was contracted. They had run out of is it the Chrysler Voyager? So the Pacifica is nicer. That's what Tesco was honoring the price of, was willing to give us. But because it wasn't explicit in that contract, there was an argument. And so they were working on that language. Well, while they're deciding on this language, another state came in, another municipality or county, came in and bought out the rest of the vehicles. And so my 4 vehicles from 2024, and I would have had it in 2024. They would have had it for me ready in a month. They offered me a vehicle that had 3 seats instead of the 5 seats, but I know we have the need for the more seats. I was calling those ADA Priuses because we have Priuses right now, and it's not the smart thing to do with our fleet. So I said no to those. I want to get 5-seat vehicles. I want to get what we need rather than just filling the space. So that was a circular answer.
Well,
to what's going on.
Where we go from here, what are the possibilities? We wind up with nothing?
No, we'll get them.
We'll get them.
There will be funding in 5311. But I just don't want to pull the trigger and promise it under the 5307 funding because I need everything done and paid for by the end of June. Before we can become rural. So
because we were gonna lose that funding, right? So we were
Correct,
trying to,
correct.
so,
but they haven't awarded the capital, because with the feds, I have all of those grants sitting there with the money ready to go. But they haven't given me what we're going to get in the 5311 funding that hasn't been awarded yet. I think they'll approve it, but
When do you think you're gonna get them?
well, I've not gone through this before.
No.
So,
We don't know.
yeah, but I think that there is, because so many people are so flush with COVID relief funds, I think it's not gonna be an issue. But I don't feel comfortable saying yes to Tesco. I'll take those 4 minivans for 2025 without the certainty that we've got that 80-20 match. So,
and so would they not no longer come from the funds we approved at the end of June? Then we wouldn't be buying those with those funds?
it would be coming from WISTAT, so it would be a different source of funds.
Okay.
Yep. So,
That kind of circles back to that whole question. We still had funds we could spend, right?
mhm.
By the end of June.
Yep, and so we are going to, I was gonna put it in my updates for next month that, like Charlie's gonna start working on the concrete inside, like replacing those drains, doing the underbody wash. I think one of the first projects for, I don't wanna speak on your behalf, but, like resurfacing the parking lot, so, the exterior concrete work that, I have the FTA had to do an environmental approval for me. I don't know if you guys ever noticed over by transit, there's the bike path, there's gravel, and then there's the road. Well,
We approved all those, didn't we?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that, are there other projects to approve to order sit for
Yeah.
committee? Nice polos. Transit, you could be advertising,
Included in the price of a United Way donation.
You know, stocking up on things for the area and, doing what I can, but like, there's just a lot and so. And I don't want to get in trouble,
No,
So-
we don't want you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I haven't pulled the trigger on those 4, because I placed the order at the beginning of October for all of them during the WIPTA conference. And then there was the language issue, and so I've just been like, come on, so. So we're getting 8 of the 12 right now, and I hope we get the other 4 pretty quickly.
So we're replacing the ones that were.
Yep. And because we were increasing the fleet from 27 to 30 there, we'll only actually be down 1 vehicle, so,
Okay,
so.
any other, and I just had one thing on could we take the bus off?
It's already done, but I chose, and I ran this by John, I just wanted you to see a full picture, because this is the only one that shows.
will end of the year end, it'll be the
Yeah.
packet for
Yep.
eternity.
Yep, yeah,
Yep.
no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Next month you will see a revised
Yeah.
without the bus. That's.
Yeah, so that'll be
Thank you.
gone,
Okay.
so,
Wonderful.
any other questions?
And financials,
Do we still have revenues to secure end of December or not? Anything trailing there, or are we at 76% and that's what it is?
So I'm not going to do the final Echo drawdown until Julie has the final numbers and closeout, which I don't even think will be ready at the end of. There's a lot of transitions happening in transit. They came up with a new system, Black Cat, where I'm supposed to have everything submitted to Black Cat by the end of January. And I spoke with Julie, she's like, we're not gonna have all our numbers by the end of January, so I'm gonna do the best I can there. But I'm not gonna do our final Echo drawdown until we have everything, and then John and I will do that with the feds and balance
Okay.
everything, so,
Give us an update.
Then we'll wait.
yes, so.
That sounds great.
All right.
Okay, thanks for your patience. Sarah, as we
guys.
work through everything. All right, highway, have the other action item, the E and J intersection.
Yeah, so this is, to remind the committee, this is something that there was a school bus accident at the intersection of County Trunk Highway E and J Road in the town of Philadelphia, northwest corner. Well, Saukee County. It was something that was then brought before the Transit Safety Commission, which Tom Gravel was on. And so we immediately after the accident, there was a number of sign updates, page 33 in the packet, kind of shows looking at some of the site improvements we did, which was, coming eastbound, we changed the sign to a stop ahead, we added flagging. Coming westbound, we added flagging to the stop ahead sign. At the intersection, we actually added secondary stop signs, so there's not just one on the right-hand side of the road, there's one on the left-hand side of the road, so you double see them. In the meantime, the town of Fredonia requested and paid for flashing stop signs out there at that location. We did have staff work with the homeowner on the southeast corner and did trim additional trees there. We continue to do, again, the intersection sign going northbound, we added yellow reflective striping and added an advisory 45 miles per hour. And so then the next step was I wanted to have a concept of what are the speeds that are going, what are the traffic volumes out there. Typically, as we've talked about with the C and Y intersection, typically I don't look at it, I don't want a four-way stop unless there's equalized traffic. Typically, you would then put the stop sign on the lesser traveled road. In this case, what kind of shocked me is when we did the numbers, it actually turned out that the lesser traveled road tends to be County Trunk Highway E. That being said, I still am outright against a four-way stop. I've talked with Sheriff Knowles as well. Our concerns are that you have about equal sight distance, whether you're heading westbound on J Road or northbound on E. Both have just below what you're supposed to have for stopping sight distance for the stop signs. The difference is if you wanted additional stopping sight distance, you can, put a trombone arm and put a stop sign over there. You can't do that for northbound because it's such a drop off of the hill. There's no way to do that. Plus, you would have such a steep hill, people would be coming down that in winter. The concern would be that you would have people stopped, someone coming over the hill, and so from my standpoint, I'm still outright against a four-way stop. Sheriff Knowles, was hoping to be here today, but she was gonna be unable to make it. She said she agreed that she was against it. Otherwise, you see, in essence, what I tried to do is I tried to do a speed study looking at around where that stopping sight distance typically is. Typically, stopping sight distances, I believe, for this area, I think I put it in stopping sight distance, I think it's about 500 feet generally. Yeah, stopping sight distance is around 500 feet for stopping sight distance, and so what I kind of did is I put this radar detector, so it would tell me how many vehicles were coming through and what speeds they were going. So I put them, ballpark around that distance out. There's a 650, 700, 650, and 875 feet away from the intersection to get a good sense of, okay, as people are nearing the intersection, I think I've had some people here or I've heard some people go, oh, everyone's doing 70, everyone's doing 80. And what the data showed was, no, that's not the case. Typically, 85%, so when we talk about 85th percentile, that is 85% of the people are doing that speed or less. And so from all directions, the highest they're coming into the intersections is it looks like 52 miles per hour from the north. Other than that, westbound is coming in at about 49 miles an hour, eastbound's coming in at about 51 miles an hour, and northbound's coming in at 54 miles per hour. But again, so generally, I think the speeds are where we would expect to see them. And so from my standpoint, I'm satisfied in kind of continuing to watch this. There were a couple of residents that had hoped to make the meeting, obviously unable to be here. One of them I did check, did send me an email stating that they were going to be unable to be here. In essence, asking for what they had hoped to ask for was just more, as far as what more can you do? Why can't they put a four-way stop up? Do a study to determine why you can't put a four-way stop up, those kind of things. So, or do more flashing signs and that kind of thing.
I would like to see us on the hill. Yeah, we lower the speed limit.
Okay.
That I think, if you put the signs up ahead of time, we're coming in here at 55, then it goes to 45, right? Then you double, try to get it down to 25 or 30, just for the hill. And for anybody driving a truck to go through that, I timed this just by the way, and I went out there with my car. To go through that, changing the speed, you're gonna lose 1 minute of time. 1 minute of time, that's all. From going from 55 down to 25, going through just the intersection.
Can't lower it to 25. There's no wait time. I mean, we can lower it 10 miles an hour without any question. Other than that,
Truck going slower, because if he sees something, he's not gonna be able to stop.
again, stopping sight distance is shown to be 500 feet.
How far is it from the top of the hill?
Top of the hill, I want to say it's around 600 feet, 650. I'd have to verify that though. Yeah, going north.
Yeah.
State statutes require that you do a speed study approved by DOT if you are lowering more than 10 miles an hour. Again, from a sheriff's standpoint, the sheriff's department is always going to have concerns that attempting to create these small little blockouts, it's truly not enforceable because by the time they're in or out of the little blockout, what speed were they going? And that's why we did add in an advisory, 45 miles per hour. And again, 85% of the people on northbound were going 54 miles an hour or less. 46% of the people were going between 39 and 48. So again, I think you're talking the majorities are lower speeds.
I agree that something like the sign we have, to lower the speed there. We talked yesterday, I think, about, maybe caution, four-way intersection or dangerous intersection or something like that, or actually posting a lower speed, which I would be in favor of going to 45 there on the northbound stretch leading up to the intersection before they go. Totally opposed to the four-way. I think that's a horrible idea. I think that the most significant thing that has been done has already been done. That's flashing stops on both sides. Sure. Because all of the accidents in the last 5 years or 10 years, whatever those 5 accidents were were, you know, not failure to yield, failure to stop, going east and west, hitting cars driving north and south. So the way to solve the problem is to get those people to stop and actually look, right? And whatnot. So I think they've done that. And I think if we slow, you know, what else could we do? I would recommend slowing the traffic coming northbound over that hill down to the intersection. And I think that would be how we do that, with exactly what signs and whatever. Do we actually lower the speed limit? I don't know, but something. Okay.
And again, if you're looking at a lowered speed limit, I could bring back an ordinance that changes that. From
Any further?
Well, the only thing I thought of, you cut that tree up, okay? So the people down there by the, you know, going this way,
Mhm.
can look, but can the guy coming down the hill see that? Cause it's only only first tree got cut.
Yeah.
But you got 10 in a row that aren't cut.
Sure.
But my problem is, okay, the guy coming down is not gonna see it until he gets almost, you know, 3/4 way down the hill. But I still think we have a signage problem, but I can't see.
I don't disagree with you, Tom, but I have four-way stops. We have the intersection of C and T in the town of Cedarburg. That's a four-way stop, flashing lights on top of 2 stop signs. We still have accidents there. People still blow stop signs. People still
I agree.
stop and pull out. And so my concern is anything you attempt to do to stop the traffic going north or southbound, it's unlikely to work. And my concern is giving that false sense of security to east-west bound,
Right.
saying, oh, I know they'll stop because they have a stop sign. And they don't. So, no, I mean, again, I think we have an intersection sign up over the hill. We could certainly create that as a flashing sign, if that's something you guys wanted. If we have an advisory speed, we could lower that speed limit as well.
Could we keep it at 55, but put up a danger intersection ahead flashing light? Not change the speed, leave it at 55?
I think,
Only back to 45.
I think the DOT got rid of dangerous intersection signs. I think it's now just, it's a yellow sign that shows an intersection. And it like intersection ahead, and then I think that you can do that as a flashing sign, I believe.
I like that idea more than even lowering the
Yeah,
speed
me too.
limit is adding a flashing intersection sign and then the cautionary 45.
Okay.
The sign's a little small, bigger cautionary 45, but you know, that's all the only size you get.
Can the county reimburse her for those trees in that corner?
I met with her along with Warren Gettle. The issue is that they're on her private property. We talked about,
Wait a minute, I thought we got 65 feet from the middle road.
no, 33. 33 feet from the center of the road.
When you were talking about fire rate, you said it was 64.
66 feet is a standard right of way. We have right of ways all over the place. We, you know, like County W is 110 feet. Nope. Most of our county highways, especially in the rural locations, have never been updated, because typically when we update those, like when we did a few years ago, we reconstructed Highway I, where we were lessening all the slopes. We had to go out there and buy that right of way to go. We went from 66 to, I think it was 80 feet. So we bought 7 feet on each side to get us out to 80. Most places, the only way we get that additional right of way, if we don't want to buy it, is when a development occurs, we require them to dedicate that additional to us. But in a rural location, no developments have occurred, so there's been no dedications.
I didn't know.
So, yeah, so we did talk to her at one point, and again, she, from her standpoint, that's a vision blocker, noise blocker, wind blocker on the west side of her home, at that location. So we did say, you know, if we had future options, if we didn't feel that this was enough, you know, could we potentially buy and replant trees farther in? I think she does have a septic system somewhere in that yard. So I don't know how far we could move them in to begin that, then it would begin to get it in their septic systems. Again, I think from my standpoint, I would have no issue putting up that flashing intersection sign if that's the direction the committee wants to do. And again, certainly like some of our other hot button intersections of W and T, C and Y. People let me know when more accidents occur at those locations, so.
Is there a traffic number, daily number that travel that road?
Yeah, so that is on my little sheets, the estimate under each of the green boxes you see EST, ADT, that is estimated average daily traffic.
Okay.
And so it estimates, and that is in going in both directions. So over my 3 days, 4 days that I was, on the J Road east side, it averaged about 660 cars a day went past that.
Never addressed that.
Versus, south on E was about 470, north on E was about 340, west on J was about 560. Yeah, J is a pretty big thoroughfare. It's coming from 57. It's one of the main roads that you can kind of get west to east or east to west from 57 all the way into Washington County.
Mm-hmm.
If you considered lowering the speed limit, would that only be for the northbound side or would it be both sides?
I mean, I would. And again, I don't know. There's the data would tell me that the speed, the traffic is matching pretty well with the 55 miles per hour because our 85th percentiles are, again, north. It's typically, I would think that you would kind of do it equidistant on both sides of the intersection. But that being said, north of the intersection, because it's flatter, because there's better vision, there you have people going 60, the 85th percentile is 60 miles an hour, versus south of the intersection, poor vision, big hill you have to get up, so you have to gun it. There, the 85% is only at 47 miles per hour. So I probably would just do it south of E if that's something the committee wanted to do. My recommendation would probably only to be doing south of E, but again, I think my main thing would be, I think, trying the flashing intersection signs first.
You would think that would inherently make people slow down
Yeah.
even more.
Or lets you see flashing.
Correct.
It's a wake up.
The concern always becomes, the studies I've seen is that regardless of what we do, within 6 months, people are right back to what they're doing.
Well, people drive the speed that they're safe, they
that they're
feel
comfortable.
safe
Yep.
traveling at, right? Yeah. Ask Rick Nelson.
Okay.
His is 95. I don't know. I've been on the freeway with him.
It's a wide open freeway.
My goodness.
So is that the consensus then? Do we need a motion?
I would say I would say if you guys want to direct me to install a flashing intersection sign
On the northbound.
for the northbound County Junk Highway E.
South of the intersection.
Yeah.
I would move that. Second, moved and seconded. I moved. Supervisor Bravo seconded. All in favor?
I.
Opposed, motion carries.
How far, I forgot to ask, how far will you put down the flash? Is there a certain distance that you gotta do?
Typically, it just gives a generic, like, kind of range, and then it talks about where the vision is poor. So again, officially, I think it's, if you have stopping distances that are greater than 500 feet, then officially you don't need one. But if they have one, then they say you just put it a distance ahead where the vision is poor. And so right now we have an intersection sign. You can kind of see where it is, and it's right at basically just before the crest of this hill. So, I think there was some comment that maybe it should be farther south, and I can certainly look at.
But for liability reasons, in case the sign is not
Yeah.
placed in the right direction.
Well, we want to make sure that we're following what the code stipulates and that.
Yeah.
Should.
Okay, thank you, John. Revocable occupancy permit.
Yeah, so Tim Groby was hoping to be here today, but he must have been unable to make it. So again, certainly within our highways, we have lots of utilities in those roadways. We energies, gas, electric, all these other potential things. We do within our code, on page 38, I believe, of the packet, 37 of the packet, we do allow for private utilities. Now, as far as I'm aware, we've never done one. In this case, the issue is that he owns parcels on the east and west side of the roadway. He has a house that's on the east side, his farm field's on the west. He'd like to install a water line that can, for 6 months of the year, water the west side of his farm fields. So to do that, rather than drill a new well, he would prefer to run an extension of his water main, his private water main, across the roadway. Generally, like I wouldn't really be in favor of it, because but the issues I brought up, he didn't seem to have an issue with, which were, if you were gonna put this water line, there would be a steel casing, because number one concern is, if that water line starts to leak, I don't want it to erode the bottom outside of the road. So if you put it in steel casing, that erosion is going to occur out in the ditch, out in the private property. So I don't have as big a concern. There's always a potential concern that someone comes along and digs out and hits the line. That's why utilities are required to be part of Digger's Hotline. So I brought up that he would have to be part of Digger's Hotline. He looked into that and he didn't have an issue with that. The reality is out in this area, because that water main has to go in probably 4, 5, 6 feet deep anyways, most utilities go in at 3 to 4 feet deep. He's not gonna have much of a concern out there. And again, it's rural in nature anyways. And then also, just so people, another one that when I reached out to surrounding counties, one of the comments back was they have them simply place blue markers with blue signage that says water line crossing here. So that if someone does come along doing trenching, doing digging, they'll go, okay, if Digger's Hotline didn't hit it, at least there's a sign telling me that this is going. And so these were kind of my requirements. From my standpoint, you know, the only other thing is, again, typically within on page 36 of your packet, he kind of gives a little diagram that he drew out to kind of show where he would be making this connection. As he kind of talks about, there's a little red circle for hydrants or shut off. From his standpoint, he doesn't see this being a year round. It would be in essence a pipe that runs across. He opens the valve to use it during summer, you know, months, and then come fall, he would shut it off and drain the line.
And Kim owns that field?
Yes, well, him and his father combined, they own that field and they own North 61, 64. And so before I had him start going through the process of actually doing, you know, because the other thing is, it's potentially, I want to talk to him a little more. He doesn't own the farm field to the north. No, he says he farms it and he has a good relationship with that owner. Because I did suggest if possible that I may require him to do an easement that would run that water line vertically direct north and then direct west across. So it's a very clear, plus then you have the two markers directly perpendicular across or parallel across each other. So it's very clear, okay, this is the location this pipe goes. And if he does that, then he would also have to go get an easement from that home, from that landowner to get that done.
You can't get permission from the homeowner?
Well, he could, but I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want just a handshake agreement. I would want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable request.
Okay. I can add that one.
Comments, other comments in favor, not in favor?
Again, just a discussion yet today. but-
Discussion.
Do you want future discussion?
Guy came to our town board meeting last night. And now at Lakefield Church, they're gonna put spy phones up there. At 3 different angles on that corner.
Well, we'll
There's
see
been
about
another accident in Lakefield Road. Now, I think Lakefield Road, people are getting together and they want us to have some signs there. At Lakefield.
We can get into that in our
Yeah,
reports.
let's do that. So, anything else on this?
Okay, I get that. Yep. I think that's good.
Yeah, with that 90 degrees, I would be in favor of granting this.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thoughts? Okay,
Let's just save some money.
all right,
It's shorter.
okay, so let's see what you come back. Okay, sounds good. Highway financials, anything on the highway financials, that's preliminary again, November 30. Special revenue fund.
Well, these look good.
In the red, 150.
They're close to the 100. The Amazonics is operating, and that's all is lower.
Yeah, well, we'll see how the internal service fund comes back, because right now we're in the red again, 100,000. Okay. Anything else there? No, okay, John's report then at the end here.
Remember you got a couple of things. So Safe Streets for All, that was a grant that you guys had allowed me to work with Patty to go get. Unfortunately, we did not get that. We'd hoped for about a $200,000 grant to do a kind of a safety analysis to find areas that we can then do future applications for. I did do a debrief with the feds. They said we had a good application, but we entered in the fourth quarter of their 4 quarters and it got very largely overdone. But they said they believe they have a good chance of success going forward. So coming up here in February, they'll reopen the next section. And so I plan to resubmit for that one at that time. Superintendent vehicle, typically I'll bring things forward before you guys on the equipment budget. In this case, there was an issue in that we needed to move forward on getting something within the production slot date. And so we moved forward on that. I know, Marty, you had some comments you wanted to bring up.
I did call John yesterday and run through a bunch of different things, but well, he was in a meeting allegedly in Liddell. The concern I had, I guess, is that we didn't get a chance to approve this, and in fact, I would have spoken against it because, you know, to me, a 5-year-old vehicle with 107,000 miles is not a vehicle that needs replacement. You know, we gotta just have a different paradigm and so forth. And you know, it's certainly not that we don't want to take care of our superintendent. I think it's Josh.
Yep.
Yeah, who does a fantastic job for us and whatnot. But you know, we also have financial issues here, as our administrator informed the board yesterday. Again, there's in the executive meeting on Monday, there are 3 entities here at the county that are having financial or causing financial concerns: Sheriff's Department, Human Services, and us, Public Works.
Although much farther down the list.
Yeah, and we're much farther down the list, but we're still much more controlled, I think, you know.
In some
the
respect,
sheriff-
yeah.
The sheriff has
Yeah.
issues, you know, with wage increases and the locked-in union negotiations. The state is continually mandating more and more services and not funding them, Human Services, and then there's us. So because of the financial things, I would much prefer, and I think very reasonably, to be able to delay. Now, John did inform me that this is what we've been doing. Every 5 years, we replace this vehicle. And we move it down the line and we get rid of the next oldest vehicle, you know, down the line kind of thing. To me, I'd rather move to a 7-year scenario than, you know, within 15 years, you're buying 2 vehicles instead of 3. In light of the fact that, you know, we need to tighten up our belt here financially. We're not flush with cash here. We've got this project that's gonna, I want to say wipe out our reserves. I hope not, but you know, so that's my position. I would really. be
No,
in favor
and
of
that's
pulling
on,
back.
and that's on me, you know, for doing it. Again, it was approved as part of the budget. And again, historically, I think the reason why we're doing it, I did take a look back based on your questions. In 2011, we had replaced a 5-year-old vehicle that was 140,000 miles. 2016, we replaced that vehicle, the previous vehicle, at 114,000 miles. And again, now that vehicle is run by the shop superintendent. It currently is at 170,000. And again, so typically, it's not that we get rid of that vehicle after 5 years. Our patrol superintendent, who is the one going out in the middle of the night, going out in the middle of the storms, driving around a lot. We want reliability on that vehicle. And so when that vehicle typically hits that 5-year mark, we transition that to our shop superintendent. We're going to, in the last 5 years, put about another 55,000 miles on the last vehicle. And then typically it goes to, historically, it had always gone to either planning and parks or facilities. Now I know with some of the rental and leased vehicles they have, I don't know if it will or not. So we would either be getting rid of the shop superintendent vehicle or you know, something else. But again, the goal is still that we're getting 10 to 15 years out of these vehicles without question. And so
Yeah,
going forward, I
it's
certainly will make
more-
sure that I bring those before.
Yeah, I understand, and you did a good job of explaining that it's more than just this purchase. There are, you know, if the shop superintendent's vehicle is a problem and should be replaced, this replaces that. So, you know, there's more than just this.
And I think when in 2020, when we got the new vehicle for patrol superintendent, shop superintendent, because I think that one then went to John Stahl, who was out at the maintenance mechanic for the golf courses. And then whatever vehicle he had that was older than that got sold. And so again, this one would be, we'd shuffle it down the line whenever it came in, and then we would see if other departments needed it or we would sell it. So, but so noted, I will make sure that
Yeah.
bring that back.
So you were going to potentially but I didn't really ask you to directly check to see if it was rescindable. But I don't know, you know, again, really relying on, you know, I'm expressing financial concerns and obviously the reality that I experienced personally, that a 5-year-old vehicle, 107,000 miles on it, he's not 104,000 miles, he's not imminently in need of replacement.
Sure.
You know, so.
Years ago, it was 70,000. Now, the same, years ago, a long time ago, 70,000 miles, you gotta revolve the car. Now the cars can go 300,000 miles. And I know that because all my cars go 300,000.
There we go.
Yeah.
So any other comments? You know, I'm still kind of, but, what is it?
Can we make it a 7-year, 5-year replacement?
Again, so yeah, I certainly can, the next one that comes in, I can note the fact that this one looks to get replaced then in 7 instead of 5. Again, if at some point we have issues with them, then I'll bring them in and we'll look at them.
Well, yeah, and you know, we don't want to be pennywise pound foolish, right? We want to look long-term and look, overall. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, you keep handing these trucks or vehicles down.
Sure.
Keep handing.
Keep
them down.
cycling.
So we're focusing on the top one. But
Right.
could you run into a situation where if we make the top one 70,000, by the time you get them down to the stepchildren, those cars would be. And then you'd have to buy one for the 5th guy.
Right.
He gets to
That's
do a
something,
car.
And-
that's what I'm trying to. get
And
at. We
unfortunately,
don't know.
Mr. Borden is down sick today. So he was gonna speak a little bit to, you know, why he feels it's important. And again, I support him in that, the need to get out in all weather and know that that's a vehicle that has absolute reliability. But again, we can certainly continue to discuss that.
Well, and in honor of our absent member, Supervisor Vogel, did you consider electric cars?
We did not. Typically, the power we're looking for, because a lot of the times he may be pulling over on, especially say I-43. He needs an ability, you know, to hit quickly, get up to speed.
Okay, so, well, I still have a problem with it, but, and so noted that you're gonna bring things back as
Yep,
normal.
yep.
This really caught me by surprise.
No, that's fair.
But, I still would feel better if the committee had a chance to look at this, review it. But, anybody else? Otherwise, we're moving on to item number 3.
All right, well, just off topic, about our snowplow trucks, are they updated? Replacement years? How can we replace snowplow trucks?
What I can tell you is last year when
Are we
we,
lagging?
the current replacement truck we're about to replace is, I think, a 2001. I think we're about a 20-year vehicle. And again, similarly though, that vehicle has very little hours on it. It's in the first 4 or 5 years. They tend to go on state highways that it's used constantly a lot. Then the next 4 or 5 years, there may be on county roads, maybe town roads, it gets used lesser. Then years 10 through 15, slightly lesser, and then 15 to 20 or so, you know, a little bit less, but
maintenance wise, we're actually hanging in there for.
it depends on, if
Should we
you're
address
talking to
that
the
as a-
mechanics. No, I think where we're at right now, we had, again, this is kind of going off topic, but in essence, we had put a lot of money into equipment for the last 10 years, 10, 12 years. Commissioner Dreblo at the time requested a big increase and they kind of maintained that. And what we kind of found over the last number of years, through the work of our financial analyst, Julie, is our interest or our depreciation on each of those pieces got way too high. And so she's been working with us to make sure we're bringing that down. And we had a couple of years there, the last couple of years, where we bought very little. Now we've kind of brought what was kind of a budgetary looking at like 1.1 million. We've brought that down to about 700,000 going forward is where we're at right now. Okay.
Number 3.
Number 3, Again, just to give you guys an update, back in October, the board approved the resolution saying it's a rough road crossing for Q. I submitted that. You have to give them at least 30 days to respond or to do work. I gave them 40 or 50 days just to see if something would happen. Nothing did happen, so I did now formally submit that. The OCR has accepted my all that means is that they received it, and now at some point they'll schedule a testimony or hearing. And myself and or I know Supervisor Vogel has expressed interest in speaking to it. And basically what it is we don't even necessarily need to go to Madison. We would in essence have a list of questions that Corp Counsel Gordon would ask us, we would respond, and then that testimony would be submitted to the OCR. And then Union Pacific would respond.
Usually it's 3 to 4 years later before they do the work, just so you know.
It's not always quick. Railroads do what they want.
That's correct.
Any other items? Otherwise, I do have a couple other quick little items to add.
Yeah.
Just in the last week, Village of Grafton did get their bids in for the W and Falls Road traffic signals for about $400,000. So I think there'll be a little bit more on top of that. So that is, we had agreed to pay 20% of that. The original estimate when it came before the committee was a total project cost of $700,000. But I think that it still includes some engineering and some other things, but we should be well under that 700,000 by the time with the construction bid itself at 400,000. So that'll get done here in the spring, summer. And then also, and Supervisor Grabow started talking about this, as I have my hot button issues throughout the county. We've dealt with them for a little while at C and Y in kind of 23, 24. One that's springing back up right now with a rollover accident recently was at W and T. Fort Washington and Lakefield Road. Historically, I've looked at that intersection, I want to say maybe 3-4 years ago. What we found is there were a whole lot of accidents, but almost all the accidents were rear ends eastbound. It was all people pulling up to the stop sign, line of traffic, someone goes, there's a gap, I'm gonna go, but the person in front of them didn't think the gap was big enough. They ran right into the back again. So I am going to do a analysis of those accidents here in the near future. Supervisor Grabow, as he was starting to talk about before, there is a member of the public that will occasionally stop by and see me. And Joe Porth, and he is also
at every meeting.
he goes to every Town of Grafton meeting. He does maintenance for the church that's on the southeast corner. And he came in yesterday with a concept of he's going to find donatable cameras that can get hooked up to the church's bell tower that then can be put on the intersection. And I'm not sure to what end, but then he wants that to be fed into the sheriff's department. So I said that seems like a sheriff's department issue, and I sent him to talk to the Justice Center. So with that is all I have.
That's it. Okay.
One other thing.
Okay.
Came up last night that Bob Tillman now owns the whole south side of Pleasant Valley. So now there's gonna be no money coming from the Village of Grafton. It's gonna be coming from Bob Tillman, paid for that section of road,
Well, it's still a village roadway.
But they're out of it.
All right, how about we talk about that?
Okay,
after the
yeah.
meeting? Since you went off track at the end there, we're very much over our normal time.
Yeah,
I can't put the whole hour on you, can I?
you did have 2 attorneys.
We didn't even have the E&J road.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
second.
We move to second, all in favor? Meeting adjourned.